Today, we're going to talk about setting your grow tent up for drying. We want to preserve those terpenes to get the highest quality harvest. Come on, let's get into it. But before we do, let's give a shout out to today's sponsor, Real Growers Grow Dots, the fastest and easiest way to feed your plants. With Grow Dots, you mix them in once at the beginning of the growth cycle, and they feed your plants all the way to harvest. Check out more over at realgrowers.com. Come on, let's get into it.
Okay, so my first question is, I see people drying two different ways. I see them just taking the whole stem and hanging it that way, and then I see them cutting it down and only hanging parts of the flower. But in Colorado, here where we're at, it seems mostly people do it with the whole stem. What's up with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, think about the humidity. In Colorado, we got, 25, 30% humidity. When I was growing in Florida, it could be up to 70, 80% humidity. The idea with drying is to dry it for as long of a period of time as you can within reason. The reason when you smoke something that's been dried for 1 or 2 days or really fast, it tastes like hay. Yet you want to slowly dry that over the course of, I don't know, at least 7 days. People probably start yelling at me, that's too short, but... So the idea is that stem is loaded with moisture. So if I'm trying to slow it down, then I keep as much of that stem on as possible. I know some people that try to, almost the entire plant they'll leave on there to just pull moisture out of it and just let it slowly dry. Man, that's different than if you're in a grow in Florida or in a room in Florida. Man, the humidity is so insane there. It's like 70, 80% humidity. Sometimes stuff will never dry, you know?
Yeah, you don't need all that extra stem if you're drying in a high humidity area.
Yeah, and just like they talk about, there's, cannabis is, there's hundreds of or thousands of strains from all over the world. There's no just hard, fast rules. Just because you read something on the internet, it doesn't mean that they're in the same situation as you.
Right, and you said here in Colorado, our average humidity is like 20s, 30s, but you were telling me what we're trying to shoot for inside of our drying area is closer to 60% humidity.
Hard, fast rules. 60%. No, I'm just kidding. There are no hard, fast rules, but in the 60s, I would say, at least for me, lower 60s as far as temperature goes, because we're trying to, the more heat you have, the terpenes are able to volatilize off. So by keeping the heat down, you're keeping your terpenes where they're supposed to be, and you're letting it slowly dry. Of course, something's going to, in 80-degree temperatures, is going to dry quicker than if it was in 65-degree temperatures.
Okay, so do you advise setting up a different grow tent or a different grow room, a totally different environment from where you're growing when it comes to drying?
It's certainly a good idea. I mean, it depends. We got to be practical here. But even if, we have a mini split in this room, we've got 2 tents. I've got a grow tent and a drying tent. Just to turn the air conditioning down to 62 for, the 7 or 8 days that you're drying. Maybe I'll wear a sweater or something in here. It's not the craziest thing, so it is achievable.
Okay, and AC Infinity actually hooked us up with these Controller 69 units.
That's the way, yeah.
Okay, you can use those to control the temperature and the humidity, or at least the humidity, right?
Both. Well, they in theory, yes. So if you keep the temperature, in check in the grow room, the temperature aspect of it isn't going to work all that hard because it's not having lights to heat up the inside of the tent. So, yeah, it's really the humidity that you got to worry about, and that's a big deal. Being able to dry inside of a tent is a big deal, man. I used to stink the whole house up when it was harvest time,
Okay, so you mentioned lights, and this is something that I don't know if it's bro science or not, but everybody tells me you have to keep the lights off. You need to protect your plants from lights while they're drying.
Yeah. I mean, I'll challenge anybody in the comments on this, but UV destroys terps, man. Just the same way we were just talking that ozone in the last video destroys terps, man. UV will definitely destroy terps, so you want to keep it in the dark.
Okay, so UV destroys terps. Temperatures over 70 degrees will start to eat at your terps.
And they'll mess your carbon filter up, man, so you don't want to do that either because you're going to keep the stink out.
That's true. And so how do I know when it's time to stop drying and start curing? You mentioned 7 to 10 days.
Sure.
That's a wide window. How do you test to see, oh, now it's time to start curing?
I definitely bend the stems. I see, you can really feel if there's water in the stem, if it snaps. And when it starts getting to where you're like, hey, it's getting close, I will take a little bud off and I'll grind it up. And, you can touch it and stuff, it's very tactile, but I'll grind it up and try to smoke it in a joint. And if it's not even close, if I'm like, it tastes like water, then I know it's not ready. And it should, if it smokes really easy, then I know that I've dried it too much. But I want it to black ash, not a complete combustion, and just barely able to keep it lit. That's when it's time to put it in the jar and start curing it. And that curing it, it's kind of, I don't know the real technical science behind it, but you're keeping the drying process going. You're keeping that biological activity going. There's enough moisture in there to keep that going. And you're just releasing, you're putting it in the jar and just releasing a little bit of moisture every day. Or maybe, they call burping the jar, 3-4 times a day. You're doing just an air exchange in there, and that's called burping. And that's, once it's done drying, we put that little final finishing touches on it with the curing and burping the jars.
Nice. Okay, so this seems kind of complicated. Why would I want to go through all this extra work instead of just letting it dry out straight?
Well, you have to, there's still stuff going on. Just because you chop that plant down doesn't mean everything stops. So there's still nutrients and sugars and starches in that plant. And by keeping some moisture in there, you're keeping the biological activity going. So you're allowing the plant to use and convert these things. And it makes it into a much smoother smoke and a much smoother smoke.
Okay. All right. Nice. Okay. I'm convinced.
I mean, it is an art form, so that's how I do my art. But how do y'all do it? What did I miss? What do y'all like to do differently? And how do you bring that quality into your end flower, man? Let me know in the comments. And we just hit 6,000 subs on the channel. Thank you so much. So please continue those awesome comments. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and check out the other couple videos that YouTube is recommending. I sure hope you like them.